So, Tim, something that marketing teams are thinking about right now more than ever before is how to be as productive as possible. So, if they've set those quantifiable metrics and they're measuring the progress towards that, the pressure, both internally but externally, because the market's moving so fast, technology is moving so fast. So, the need to continuously improve, modify, learn, evolve, get better, better, and better, but how to do that most efficiently and most productively, a lot of pressure around that. Are there some practical tools that teams can use to make sure that they're not trying to focus on too many things that would not allow them to be productive, but allow them to be a ruthless prioritization machine, for lack of a better term, so that they can be more successful over time?
Ooh, how much time do we have to cover this? There's so much to say here about productivity. I think that we are in an age where we're expected to do a lot. And I think often the biggest expectation for us to do a lot comes from ourselves. I know it does for me. I think many marketing leaders feel that pressure to be productive, to get a lot done, to deliver stuff. And I think the answer is productivity is not about volume. Just like we're talking about impact here, if you want to talk about the impact of our time, it's not about how many boxes you checked off or how many things you delivered or completed. Productivity is about doing the right things and making progress toward our objectives, those outcomes, and the greater impact. I think that's the first lens we have to look at it through is what is productivity for us? How do we define that? Because I think many of us have an incorrect definition of what productivity is and looks like. A couple months ago, our fridge broke at our house. And obviously that's a big deal. You have all your food in there. Food is not cheap these days. And so I had to stop everything essentially and go with my wife and buy a new fridge. And it took a little bit longer than we thought to get a fridge, as fast as possible. But it interrupted my whole week. But I could do that because the most important thing right then was to get a new fridge. If I don't get a new fridge, we're not going to have dinner. It's a big deal. And that's how we have to look at ruthless prioritization, which is my term for there's prioritization, which is arbitrarily picking what thing is more important right now. But there's being ruthless. And this goes back to what we talked about with priority being singular. What is the thing that either would make everything else easier, or what is the thing that will really move the needle and move us forward? And there's this idea of, thinking bigger, that if you think, how do we bump up our results by 20% or 10% versus how do we quadruple our results? And what level of thinking would that require? What effort would that require? That's being much more strategic. And now we're really focused on the things that will have a huge impact, not on the things that might, be a speed bump on the road to success. So I think productivity first, it's about redefining what does productivity look like. Second, it's about being clear that there's stuff we don't have to worry about. And I think if we can shed that, it becomes a lot easier. You will never get your to-do list done. You'll never complete it. And I think once you can accept that, it becomes a lot easier to be more productive and to focus on the right things and to be absolutely ruthless about the thing that is most important any given week and any given day.
I've had a lot of conversations with marketing leaders about executive leadership in their organization. And, one of the ongoing challenges, even as they're trying to do that ruthless prioritization themselves, is this never ending trickling down of new, exciting ideas. What if we did this? We could do this. What do you think? We should do this. Come back to me with a proposal on that. And so the inevitable, as much as they're trying to narrow the list down, there's always something else that's trickling down, in an organization that's very idea oriented and always, trying to generate more innovation. So part of this seems to be honesty and transparency in a leader's upstream communication around the trade-off for introducing a new idea or committing resources. And I think sometimes leaders feel awkward about, how do I go about creating that understanding that it's not a zero-sum, game. Is like, if we do this, there's a price to pay. There's an impact of doing that. So it seems like that's part of it too, right?
Absolutely, it is. I feel like a lot of the marketing leaders that I coach, many of them are new to their role or new to the company. And you're right, it does feel awkward. It feels like you're telling your boss, you're poo-pooing on their idea. You're not agreeing with what they think is best. This goes back to what you said about engineering versus marketing, that you wouldn't dare have an idea for engineering and expect them to know what you're talking about or that it would apply. And yet with marketing, we feel like the door is open and that anybody can tell us anything and that we must comply and agree. And I think the best thing I could say to any marketing leader is there's one word that's super powerful that you need to learn, and that is no. If someone says anything, the default should be no. And you have to say it like that. No, not no, let me think about that, or no, I need some time to process that, or no, not today, but maybe tomorrow. It needs to be no. And if you can say no and say no consistently, then people stop. One, they stop giving you ideas, which is great. But two, you earn their respect, because if you say yes to every idea, I mean, you're going to be drowning in things and responsibilities and demands now. And so I like to think of this like a castle. A castle has a lot of defense mechanisms. First, there's the moat around the castle, so no one can get there, and you have to lower the drawbridge. Then there's the portcullis, the gate, that you have to lift up. Then there's like the boiling oil or whatever they pour down on you. We need these defense mechanisms for marketing leaders, for our teams, to protect us, because marketing requires time. It doesn't work overnight. And because of that, that means we have to be consistent and have time to do the stuff we've set out to do, to create the outcomes and the impact we want to create. And to do that, we have to protect ourselves. And this is one, internally, prioritizing ruthlessly on the things that will actually move the needle and make a difference. And two, stopping, in this case, the enemy, the intruders, from coming in and stealing our time and our attention away from the things that actually matter. And so there's a lot of ways to create those systems, but the first ultimately comes to us being a leader and being assertive and saying no. The second is you can have a future log, where you can record all these ideas. You can have a prioritization matrix where you put these ideas into them and grade them essentially as a rubric and say which ideas make sense for when. But you need to have some defense mechanisms in place. And if you don't, you're going to be stampeded with a constant influx of great ideas and shiny objects like AI and all this nonsense that will just distract you from the things that actually matter. And that is the fundamentals of marketing. Do the right thing, do it consistently, and give it time. But you have to protect your time and your priorities to do that.
And I think as you're applying that protection, something that I found is really powerful is just periodically let your team know, give them specific examples where you've actually said that very strong, definitive no. And the purpose it's not a self-congratulatory thing where you're trying to say, look how great I am, as a leader. The purpose in letting them know about those examples is really to show them that you have their back and that you understand how important that protection is, to really give them the best chance to have impact and succeed. And that instills more confidence in your team, in you as a leader that really is thinking about them. You're thinking about the collective success of the whole, not just what's easiest in that moment to say yes and take on another thing that's going to just weigh the team down.
That's a great point. And it also builds into them that value set, that empowerment, so that as they level up and as they're asked of things, they can have the same lens, to your point, of let me prioritize correctly and let me protect my time and my attention and our efforts. Because, they say one bad apple spoils the bunch. I mean, that applies to our marketing efforts as well, that you add in one thing, it dilutes everything else. I learned it as the law of raspberry jam, that, the more you spread it, the thinner it gets. And that's our time, that's our budget, that's our efforts. Adding more things, trying to do more things doesn't help us. We need to be extremely focused on a few of the right things, and again, give it time. And that's the thesis, the genesis of ruthless prioritization, that the fewer things you do, the better you can do, and the faster you can make progress and see the results. And so it's not about doing more, adding more, or trying new things all the time. It's about staying focused and being consistent and nailing the fundamentals. And it's been shocking, Dan, to see of all the clients I've worked with and the leaders I coach, that so many marketing organizations are just missing fundamentals. And instead, we want to be distracted by AI and automations and all these newfangled things and tools. And it's crazy, when yet we don't have the fundamentals in place. And that's why we have to protect our time, our attention, so we can build the right things and create the results, the outcomes, and impacts that we want and that we need.